now.
Yes, we're live now, Councillor Foster.
Excellent. So on that note, good evening. Welcome to Craven District Council Policy Committee. Got a biggish agenda, so we'll try and crack on with it best we can. Vicky, apologies and substitutes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got apologies from Councillors Heseltine and Welsh, and substitutes are Councillors Handley and Soloway. And at this point, would it be all right if I did a roll call of the members present?
Certainly.
Okay, so if you can just unmute yourself, members, and say that you're present when I call out your name. Chairman, obviously, you're in attendance. Councillor Barrett.
Present.
Councillor Ireton.
Present.
Councillor Liss.
Present.
Councillor Madeley. No. Okay. Councillor Metcalfe.
Yes, present.
Thank you. Councillor Morell.
Present.
Councillor Mulligan.
Present.
Councillor Myers.
Present.
Councillor Noland.
Present.
Councillor Place.
Present.
Councillor Rose.
Present.
Councillor Handley.
Present.
And Councillor Soloway.
Present.
And Councillor Wheeler. Sorry, Councillor Wheeler.
That's all right. Present.
Thanks. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, Vicky. We're going to, sorry, public participation. I don't believe we've got any, do we, Vicky?
No, Chairman.
Declarations of interest. Councillor Myers.
Yes, Chairman. Item 11 and item 12, paragraph 15, interest. The first ones will be obvious to members. The second one is because the landowner is one of my oldest friends. So.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Anybody else waving or showing?
None, Chairman.
Not currently. I've forgotten item 2, by the way, confirmation of minutes. So if are we happy with the minutes? Looking for anybody waving madly at me.
Move them, Chairman.
Thank you. Have a second. Councillor Myers, thank you. Nobody shouting, waving a hand or anything, so I'll assume we're all right there. We've done declarations of interest, so we're straight on to item 5, council tax base. Councillor Mulligan, if you'd like to lead on this one.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is an annual report we present to policy about the council tax base. I don't have much to say about it. Very little has changed since last year, so I'll just leave it at that. And if anyone has questions, Richard Way, I don't know if Richard wants to comment or not, but Richard's here to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I just maybe add this year that members will note that this is the first time for as many years as anyone can remember, I think, that the calculation of the base has actually reduced between last year and this year, and that's just as we make some adjustment in the calculation for an estimated increase in council tax support claimants and a slight decrease in the overall collection rate. We've based the assumptions around those two things on the position as it stands currently and forecasted out to the end of the year. But also trying to take a view that's not too pessimistic about what the remainder of next financial year would look like. So there is some adjustment around those two elements, but also, as you'll see in the report, there is growth in the tax base as well, which mitigates the reduction of those two other things to some extent overall. So there is a reduction, a slight reduction from last year, but it's really down to the situation that we're in at the moment and some informed calculations about what the impact of that might be around the calculation of the base for next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, guys. Looking around for questions, waving of hands, raised hands. There's genuine shaking of the head. Now, if we can do things tonight without taking a full-on vote of the roll call, we'll do it. I'll check with Vicky at each occasion whether we need to do that or just note stuff. So, Vicky, over to you to tell us what you want to do.
Yes, because this one is going to council and it is the tax base. I think if we can do a roll call on this one, that would be appreciated. And also just to tell you, Councillor Madeley's joined the meeting as well. So, okay.
Excellent. So over to you then, Vicky, for the roll call.
Okay, so I'll just call your name out and if you could say whether you're for or against, you're abstaining. Chairman.
For.
Councillor Barrett.
For.
Councillor Handley. Councillor Handley, you voting for? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Ireton.
For.
Councillor Liss.
For.
Councillor Madeley.
For.
Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Morell.
For.
Councillor Mulligan.
Or
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Noland.
For.
Councillor Place.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Soloway.
For.
And Councillor Wheeler.
For.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, members. So we'll move on to the next item. Again, it's over to Patrick on the test and trace isolation payments, the discretionary part of the scheme.
sorry, Richard, I thought that you were going to do item 6 and
Okay.
item 6A.
But back to me then.
Yeah.
I'll pretty much hand over to Richard on this one. Needless to say, the government put a scheme out. It's fairly comprehensive, but there was a small amount of money left over on top of this where we could give discretionary payments. We've had a look across the scheme and tried to work it with the small amount of money, and it really is a small amount of money. I think we get 20 some grants we can give under this scheme. So we've looked at a scheme that's going to really catch those people that are in most need, and it will work. We aren't going to spend it all in the first week of this. So it's not an easy one. It's not an easy one for the officers to deal with, but I think they've come up with a pretty good scheme. So Richard, if you want to elaborate on my synopsis, you're more than welcome.
No, Chair. I think you've covered most of it there. Just to say that the bulk of the paperwork and the detail in the report relates to the national scheme, and the discretionary element really is just at the margins, and that's been interpreted to be broadly the same as the national scheme. But one of the key qualifiers for the national scheme is to be in receipt of the one of the benefits that are listed. And the discretionary element that we've introduced is to allow people who are eligible for those benefits but not actually in receipt of them to be considered for application. And as you said, Chair, the amount is just over 10,000. So you know, it isn't a significant funding scheme in that sense, but hopefully it will be able to help a number of people in the area. Thank you.
See your hand, Councillor Wheeler.
I'll just lower it again. Better. Yes, couple of questions really. It is a good scheme. Obviously, there's a limited amount of money, and there's a finite amount of money. I'm guessing we're probably going to run out. So, how are you going to decide who gets what? Will it be first come, first served, or will it be down to level of need?
Have a follow up on that, or do you want that one answering first?
Sorry?
Go for it, Richard. I'll answer that one.
Well, I think the answer is the allocation is the allocation that we've got. We need to report back quite frequently to government on how much has been spent, and so you know the rules of the scheme are quite clear. So our intention is to to make payment to those people who are eligible as soon as they come through. I mean, just for information, you know, we've already had 21 applications and paid 3. There are a number within that aren't eligible, and others that we're waiting for information from. So, you know, it is both funding streams really are relatively small, and they'll only go so far. And I think all we can do is report how much has been allocated, in the hope that there'll be more to come if numbers continue to increase.
Back on that, Councillor Wheeler. I mean, I think it is that reporting back to government, the important bit of it, and making sure that they, you know, they do know if we've spent up, that there's obviously a need and there's a need more. You're looking a bit frozen, Councillor Wheeler. You've moved.
Yeah, no, something flashed across my screen. Your internet is unstable. Normally it's me rather than the internet. Just clarification. So the other question was, the likelihood is it will run out, you know, as it's a finite amount. I understand that, but if we are oversubscribed, how will we sort it? Will it be first come, first serve, or will we assess who is in the greatest need of all? Because clearly some will have to be disappointed. I'm just wondering if there's some form of criteria to assess if we're oversubscribed, who gets it and who doesn't.
I think Richard's explained that really. It's a case of we're putting this criteria in, therefore it will be first come, first served. Who meet our criteria will get the money. When the pot runs dry, the pot does run dry. But we are obviously sending these back to the government on a weekly basis. So if the pot is running dry, we'll obviously put pressure on government to put some more in the pot so we can keep funding our discretionary scheme. That's all we can do, Mark. And if well, you know, we'll put serious pressure on government, but if people are in serious need as of now, we've got to pay them as of now.
Yep, I'm happy with that.
I'm not seeing any other hands upon this one. Nobody's waving or anything. So on that note, Vicky, are we voting or are we doing this one?
Have we had a proposer and a seconder for this?
Happy to move it from the chair.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Councillor Rose, I think, just was first.
I think if we just have a show of physical hands, that will be fine for this one, if that's all right. We don't need to do a roll call.
So all in favour?
Is they happy with that?
It looks to be
Okay.
fair. And against anybody? No, all hands have gone.
No.
Good.
Okay. All right. That's carried then, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6A, we're pulling out with because the government hasn't come out with enough information to carry that one on yet. So we're working it up, but we need more stuff from government. Is that correct, Richard? If you just want to just come in on that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's correct. Initially, there was a set of national criteria and guidance that we'd developed what would have been our local scheme upon, but in the last week or 10 days, you know, that sort of position's changed, and there's a different approach being developed. We have had some information today to say that looks like it's almost sort of finalized now, and once it is, then we can develop our local scheme as well. But at the moment we've it's still moving, so there's nothing that we can bring before members at this point.
Thank you. So we'll bring that back as quickly as possible. It's probably one of those that we will implement and then come back to members for ratification, because we need to get on and get this money out as soon as we can. So if you can bear with us on that, and we'll move forward as quickly as we can. Moving on, item 7, apprenticeship policy. Councillor Metcalfe, I believe you're leading on this one.
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Chairman. Yes, basically, the CDC wants to implement a formal apprenticeship policy, and my understanding it's been successful in the past with numerous successful apprentices, getting the professional education in the work environment. And the one thing about this that's slightly different is that the policy just doesn't include new apprentices coming into the council. It's also an opportunity for current employees to upskill, and the government apprenticeship levy covers the bulk of the cost as well. That's it. Unless Jackie has anything that needs answering. Any questions?
Looking around at members, no hands are shooting up. Councillor Metcalfe, you've explained it well enough. It's worked really well as our apprenticeship scheme, I think, across the council over many years now. And we need to keep it going. I think having the policy there is going to be a real big help to keep that running. So I'm happy to move it. If I've...
Councillor Foster, Councillor Rose has got a hand up.
Oh, Councillor Rose, sorry, go for it, Chris.
Thanks very much. I do appreciate that this is an excellent system, and having worked, with students in the past, being able to encourage an apprenticeship as a way forward is excellent. My small concern is I appreciate that there's a need for mentoring, for buddying up with the apprentices as they go through the system. My question is, are there sufficient staff with sufficient time to ensure that the support for the apprentices is as it should be? Thank you.
Very good question. Councillor Metcalfe or Jackie, who wants to come in on that one?
Do you want to answer this, Jackie?
Certainly can, yes. Each apprentice is, although they are buddied up with people, they've also got the support from the college. They come in on a regular basis and they sit down with the line manager and with the apprentice to iron out any problems, etc., that there are. And we do find that everybody is willing to help the apprentices through their apprenticeship, because it's a learning curve for both the manager and the apprentice. So we haven't had any problems at all.
Councillor Lace.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd say well done, everybody. These figures are excellent. I know it's over quite a period, but our success rate in this has been really good. And as I say, congratulations to everybody that's been involved with this so far. And I'm sure it'll go on to greater success.
Councillor Wheeler, then Councillor Madeley. You're muted, Councillor Wheeler.
I'm gonna. Yes, similar to comments Carl made, although I'm coming from a different angle. It's some rough calculations, and it's looking like from the number of apprentices that we've got, past and present, we've got about a 50% recruitment rate. And now I don't know whether that's good or bad. So I'd be interested to hear the comment on if it's something that we can improve on, or actually we're doing rather well at. And the reason that people weren't recruited is that they decided not to take the job up, or they weren't good enough. A little bit of background on that would be useful. Thank you.
Do you want to answer that now, Jackie, or do you want to answer that? Yeah, go for it.
That's fine. It's a bit of both, actually. Sometimes the apprentices decide that at the end of their apprenticeship they'd like to move on, which is absolutely fine. And we have had apprentices that have gained employment with us, as you've just said, and again sometimes people decide that they want to move on as well. So it's a bit of both, if I'm honest. But the apprentices that we have recruited into roles, they do generally stop with us for a good few years. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
And your response to the 50% recruitment rate, what is your view on that?
I think that's excellent. I really do. And they're, again, if you think about it, they're taking the skills that they've learned with us and putting it out into other organisations. And again, they learn everything from us from day one. So I think it's really, really good. Yeah.
Excellent. And so do you have any comparable data with other authorities regarding that?
No, I don't, but I can get some.
Okay, thank you.
We'll let you have that, but I would think 50% is very high. I mean, certainly across all apprenticeship schemes, I would think it is a really high one, because I mean, there'll be some apprenticeship schemes where the apprentice comes in, but there isn't really no job at the end. I think one of the things we do as a council is, you know, we try and direct the people who are our apprentices to, you know, where there are vacancies, where, you know, we've always taken them through business support in a way, started them there, let them have a look at the whole organisation, and then move them to, you know, the areas that they see fit. And through business support, they get to see the whole gamut of the jobs in the council and where they might want to take, you know, specify an apprenticeship. Councillor Madeley.
Yeah, just one question really, Chairman. Like it's for Jackie here. The question from Councillor Rose, the point was made there, do we have enough staff to mentor? That's the thing, is this is excellent news, and I know it's been going on for an awfully long time, but do we have enough staff to make sure we can give them and the training and everything we need? That is the key to this, and if it needs more funding or not, but we need to know where we are. And I'm amazed we haven't had a policy of this before, but it's all good news. Jackie?
Yeah, we do. I think we do have enough people to mentor.
Right.
Again, as I've said, they're mentored via the college that they come from, etc. And the line manager accepts that responsibility when we recruit an apprentice for them. So yes, I believe we do.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much.
Councillor Barrett. You muted.
Just briefly, Chairman, that can we just share that comparable data with all members? Is that your intention? So I'd be interested to see it as well.
So would I, Councillor Barrett. So yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
sure
you.
Jackie can do that. Thank you. I'm happy to move it from the chair. Councillor Madeley is seconding by the looks of it. What we're doing here, Vicky, is it a hand up? So if members would like to show if they're all in favour of this. Looks pretty unanimous. Any members against? Hands have gone down. Abstainers, I'm guessing none. So we'll move on to agenda item number 8. Thank you for that one. Back to you, Councillor Metcalfe, I believe, on the Reserve Forces policy.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is brand new, and I think the rationale behind it is the council recognises the vital contribution from the reserve forces, and I think there's only currently a couple of employees that are actually signed up at the moment, and hopefully it'll be something that's mutually beneficial for the transfer of skills from one to the other, mutually beneficial for the council and the armed forces. So Jackie, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that. My understanding is it's financially it's not going to be an impact.
No, that's absolutely fine, Councillor Metcalfe. I would say that's exactly what I would have said. Yes.
Looking around, members, any hands? Anybody? I mean, from a personal point of view, I think we ought to be supporting the people who choose to do this with their spare time and everything else. I think it's they're doing a good thing as far as I'm concerned, if that's what they choose to do. So I think as an organisation, we should be there to support them. Councillor Myers.
Yes, Chairman. The thing is, they learn transferable skills in both aspects of what they do, working for the council and you know, working in the territorial. I think both sides benefit and it's greatly to the benefit of the country as a whole.
Happy to move it from the chair. I'm guessing
Councillor Rose has a question, Chairman.
Councillor Rose, go for it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Same sort of question, really, with respect to item 7. I'm interested that there were just 2, you think there are only a couple of staff who are members. It does concern me that if a member of staff is absent, obviously elsewhere with this in mind, for 3 to 12 months possibly, their return will need very careful support, because obviously they'll have come back into a very different situation, I imagine. And again, I just hope that there will be sufficient support. I mean, it does state in section 6.21 that there will be support, particularly if their job role has perhaps changed or technology has meant a major change in working. I wish to be reassured that should this be the situation, that there will be good, efficient, effective support for the member concerned. Thank you.
Jackie, do you want to come back on that? I'm guessing the answer is yes.
It's absolutely, yes, absolutely. The managers will buy into it, and again, we will keep that member up to date with anything that's going on within the council, etc., so that when they do finally come back, they don't feel that they've missed out on certain things. So we would send them things like the core brief, etc., so that so that they're up to date with what's going on.
Members, can't see any more hands. I think I moved it. Seconded somewhere. Councillor Madeley was first up, I think, just. Thank you. I'm guessing this is a hands up one. So members.
Yeah, yes, please, Chairman.
In
Yeah.
favour? Thank you. Against? Looking round, none, and abstentions. Looking round, none again. So thank you, members, for that.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Metcalfe. Moving on, agenda item 9, review of enforcement team. It's down as me as a lead member, but I'm sort of going to pass this to Councillor Myers to just go through sort of like some thoughts that we've had on this and reasons why maybe we don't. Just want to take this report ahead just at the moment. But over to you, Councillor Myers. On mute.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm sure members will have read the report with a degree of satisfaction, because, of course, the Select Committee recommended certainly a large part of what is contained in that report in terms of the council engaging more staff into our enforcement team and spending more money on it. The comparisons are very interesting. It seems that we take the view our enforcement team is not big enough and not funded enough, and yet when we compare with other nearby local authorities, as we're actually spending more on it. But that's not the point, is we want to do more. But in view of the fact that we've had our peer review, and we should be getting the report back, I think, by the end of this month, so we're talking, a week or two. We just wondered whether the best thing to do at the moment was to adjourn this to the next policy committee meeting, and hopefully we'll have the meat and bones of the external review of our planning and enforcement team. It would be unfortunate to make a decision now that had an impact on other decisions that need to be taken. And so it's not trying to kick this into the long grass at all. In many respects, we'd be quite happy to go ahead and vote it through now, but it just seems a little bit premature in view of the, I hope, detailed recommendations we both on planning and enforcement. If, for example, what we were to do tonight was to pass something that put more pressure on an under-resourced planning team, then that would be very unfortunate. So we want to get it right, members. We want to spend the money. We agree in principle to spend the money. We want to take the decision right. So I would suggest, and I would forgive me, I would ask that we simply defer this to the next policy committee and consider it when we consider the recommendations of the peer review.
Councillor Aiton. You're muted still, David. You're off. You're
Right,
you're
that's
off.
good. For some unknown reason, it wasn't taken any notice. Quite clearly, Simon's dog is in agreement with this. I heard it seconding the proposal by him. I think it is the right decision to take, and wait to see what feedback comes from the peer review. And I fully agree when you look at the Ribble Valley and Richmondshire, we would appear to be heading into quite overweighted enforcement. If this enforcement position is going to deal also with planning applications and hopefully improve our planning department, they would appear to be struggling for some unknown reason. When you look at some of the applications that have been in for 6 and 7 months, and you know what appear to be quite simple applications, it does make me wonder what is going on. And we're giving a bad service to people that are paying good money to have the planning applications dealt with. So I would second the proposal that we don't act on this evening. Let's see what the peer review does bring forward and take it from there, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Aiton. I've got Councillor Soloway, then Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm looking at the screen, and I think I am the only member of Select Committee, and the reason I'm on here is because I'm substituting. But I do remember the long debate and looking into the report. It says that this was worked on. It came to the Policy Committee on February 2020, but Select Committee had driven this, the engine room of the council, as we described Select Committee. And while I do recognise that we need to look at see what the peer review says, as you said, Chairman, kicking it into the long grass is not really something that I would support. And yes, I do agree that we should bring this to the next policy committee, but please don't leave it too long after the peer review. This was driven across the council on Select Committee. It wasn't just a few disgruntled members that brought this forward to Select Committee. It was very, very much driven across the committee, and including the chairman. And I think there'll be quite a lot of disappointment if it was kicked into the long grass. So yes, while I do support it going to the next committee and waiting for the results of the peer challenge, I do think that we need to act, because enforcement is a big part of planning, and it was real concerns that were raised at the time.
I couldn't agree with you more, Councillor Soloway. But I think I'm agreeing with Councillor Myers and Councillor Aiton that let's just see what the peer review comes back with. But we need to act on the peer review, and if this is or isn't part of the peer review, it was part of the principle of the Select Committee. So we need to put this in with the peer review as we act on it. and that needs to happen quickly. We can't be messing around on the peer review either. You know, the recommendations from that need acting on quickly as well. So it'll come back together, and we'll come up with from that we'll come up with some how we're going to properly react to the peer review and react to the select committee report, and quickly.
If I could say, Chairman, I think the disgruntlement is universal for Soloway. I know of nobody who is gruntled by this. So there's no way this will slip down the agenda. It's just a question of doing it right and not finding we've done something contradictory.
Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, that's part of the question. It's intriguing actually. So the select committee have put all this work in response to a very real concern, and I am concerned that if the peer review come to a slightly different conclusion in terms of our importance on the enforcement aspect of planning, where is the weight going to be on? Are you going to add more weight to the peer review decision or recommendation, or the select committee recommendation if they are disagreeing on the level? Because certainly looking at the figures, our staffing that we're proposing is significantly different to other authorities, which begs the question, were there other authorities that we could compare with rather than those two? Because it seems rather skewed. And another point I'd like to make, and this is just for when it comes back again, is that charter looks pretty challenging to me. And the KPIs that have been put forward are great. I would just propose that maybe they need to be quarterly rather than 6 monthly, because I think if you leave it 6 months with those sort of challenging performance indicators that you're putting forward, by the time you get to discuss it and debate it, it might be a little bit too late to do something about it in that year. So do it quarterly, please.
Definitely by your second part of your question on that. As far as I'm aware, and I'm going to sort of look towards David Smurthwaite on this one, but as far as I'm aware, the peer review team was aware of the select committee report and what was in it and what we were proposing to do with the enforcement side of the what do you call it, of the select committee's report on enforcement. So they should have taken this into account. Am I correct there, David?
They were certainly aware. Whether they're taken into account or not, I don't know in terms of the report, but they were aware of what the plans were.
So it's not so it's cold, if you know what I mean, and they shouldn't be that far apart. I'm hoping between what the peer review is recommending and what select wanted to do, and then it'll come back to members to make the decision if they agree completely with the peer review or whether we ought to be. If they say we don't need as much enforcement, then it's going to be a member's decision, and we'll have that argument here as to how we're going to implement the peer review, because we're going to have to do that. I've Councillor Mulligan and Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, one or two things. First of all, I do support delaying this until we see the peer review. I just think that's common sense. Also, I've had one member in the public, in particular in my patch, contact me asking, who's very concerned about planning, and was asking whether is this peer review a whitewash or is it actually something that's worthwhile? And I have to say, just to give reassurance to the members of the public in general, my experience with peer reviews are the very positive things for whatever is being reviewed, because they will acknowledge if we have something that's good, and they will point out to us if we need to look at better practice in other areas. And I think also coming from the outside, I know Select has done a great job in looking at it sort of internally, but it's also good to have external, someone with fresh eyes to come and look at it. So I actually think we're going to benefit greatly from this report, and I think we will find areas in which we need to improve. We'll have areas where we're good at things, but you know, it's a very good idea that we've done this, and it's long overdue.
Councillor Mulligan, Councillor Ross.
All the previous discussion apart, No disrespect, just what does concern me is that there are going to be, obviously in the next few years, some very large building programs going on within Craven and particularly Skipton. And therefore, obviously, enforcement, well, I'm imagining enforcement issues will arise and we will need that extra staffing. But the key thing, as far as I was aware of reading through the report, is being proactive and getting the ward councillors involved at the beginning. This was something obviously that came up in the peer review, but say, for example, there is a big development in your own patch, to work with the enforcement officer beforehand, you know, and working with residents obviously as well. I just thought that was a really neat aspect of the whole thing. So I'm all for having more enforcement people on the ground, so to speak, with this proactive aspect to their work, rather than forever going around having to troubleshoot, which I'm certainly working with Leon Heseltine, I appreciate is a vast majority of what he and his team have to do. So maybe I should save all that until the next meeting when it is comes up again, this issue. But I do really feel strongly that the enforcement team are vital and mustn't be kicked into the long grass. Thank you.
So on that note, I've had it moved and seconded. I'm not seeing any more hands anywhere. I've had it moved and seconded for deferment. So, but it literally is, obviously the peer review will be coming, and if we can bring this report back with the peer review, we will do. So if we need to take the peer review, agree its findings, and then bring this report back, we will do. But it will be follow on. That makes sense. So, but I really do want to get on with this. It's important, and we'll be chasing it up all the time. So if members are happy with that, vote to defer. Do we need a hands up, Vicky?
Just a hands up will be fine if it's
Right,
just for a deferment. Yeah, to the next
Sure.
meeting.
Looking for against, abstentions. No, it appeared to be fairly well unanimous there, Vicky. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So moving on, item 10, the planning white paper. You'll see that the officer comments are there. They're there for approval, and delegated authority to David to alter them as necessary from comments tonight, and also a meeting, a members seminar on this tomorrow night. So any questions, additions, addendums that members want to put in tomorrow night, points of view. I think David's done a pretty thorough job. I don't disagree with a lot of the initial stuff that's gone in there. My big thing, probably the affordable housing and these big sites that are 40 or 50 houses before they have to build one on site. I like the officer comments, but I'm happy for members if they want to comment now on this, or if they want to save the powder for tomorrow night and do it as we do it then. But I think we do need to send a Craven response, and I think David's made a very good start at that anyway. So I'm happy to move the recommendations as they stand. Councillor Myers, is that a second? Anybody want to say anything now, or are you going to wait? And I hope to see quite a few of you there tomorrow night. Councillor Ayrton.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I fully agree on the affordable housing, 40 to 50 houses. I mean, how are we going to deliver in these smaller villages if that's the case? You know, all the bigger sites, I should imagine, are going to come in Skipton. You know, what's going to happen to the smaller sites if that goes through? You know, we've got a situation where, you know, on the smaller sites and the smaller villages, even now the buying out of that affordable housing going elsewhere and building. So we're not getting the affordable houses for the rural villages. Whether anything can be done on that, I don't know. I see we're getting a response. Thank you.
Would you like a response? Through you, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is that the 40 and 50 threshold is for 18 months only. I mean, it's pretty devastating anyway, but it's time limited for 18 months to help the small enterprises. The other thing is that it only applies to sites that are not in rural designated areas. So much of the north end of Skipton, the rural parts, are actually covered by the rural designation, which means that this won't apply and will continue to be able to secure affordable housing on sites of 10 dwellings and above. So it's just the Skipton ones, it's just Skipton and the southern end.
Yeah, but can I come back, Chairman?
I'm muted now. Go for it, Councillor Ayton. You're muted now. You're muted, Councillor Ayton. You're still muted, Councillor Ayton.
There? Right. Yeah, on the smaller sites now, we've got developers, you know, they're entitled to buying that out. What I would like to see is that at least they've got to build the odd 1 or 2 houses within that development in the villages, because they're just taking they're paying the money, the developer, and that then is going elsewhere to get developed. It's not helping the local communities. Certainly within the national park that happens.
Yeah, it's government policy. It changed back in 2012.
Yeah.
We could no longer require on-site provision on smaller sites. We could only take money. So on sites of 6 to 10 dwellings in rural areas, we can only take money.
Yeah. Is there not an opportunity in this response to make representation that they seriously look at that and don't forget the small rural villages?
Probably not. They are not looking at adjusting the thresholds at all. They're only looking at this amnesty, if you like, for 18 months in the urban areas. And you're right, that will impact on the numbers we have to deliver through the plan period. But beyond that, there is no opportunity to alter that. I'd be on it if there were.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not a question they're asking of us, is it, as part of their questions on the consultation, that reducing that? I mean, presumably we can stick it in as an answer, but I'm guessing it's not going to. Ruth, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to say that that proposal to increase the threshold to 40 or 50 is not a proposal in the white paper itself. It's a proposal that's in another consultation document that the government recently published called Changes to the Current Planning System. Following the comments, officer comments on that coming to policy and to Craven Spatial and being approved, then we've submitted a response to that. And in terms of this that proposal, our response has been to suggest that in sort of more rural areas like Craven, then that threshold remains at the 10 dwellings for which it currently is. So that's something that we have fed back to the government.
Dave Sykes, you want to go in? You're muted, Dave. Got you.
Just very briefly to mention that in actual fact in the new NPPF, the current NPPF, there is a much more flexible approach to providing on-site provision on smaller sites. So when the local plan is reviewed, if that's still in the latest revised NPPF, then we will be able to look at smaller sites for on-site provision.
That's good then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it goes down to infrastructure levy, and then it's how we spend it, and the levels of infrastructure levy are probably worrying as well as to what the amount of money is going to be available that the developer doesn't. And then where we do build those houses, you know, from Skipton perspective, all of a sudden we could have a load of cash, but they don't want to build them on the sites, and therefore, where are we going to build those houses? You know, where's the affordable area suddenly going to be? So, I think, like I say, I've read David's comments and the team's comments on this. I think they're very, very good, and if members want to come and have a chat through it and work it out tomorrow night, I think that's probably the best forum for dealing with the detail. David, do you want to come in before?
Yeah, just very, very briefly. Firstly, I would like to take credit for it. It's really down to Ruth and the team and to Jenny. Done a fantastic job on it. So usually I just sit back and take the praise. I think for tomorrow, the key thing we're going to be focusing on is there's some really big issues in there. So it's more of a discussion about heads up about, well, what are the likely big changes that are going to be happening, rather than looking at some of the minutiae. So big things like the likelihood that the public representations will be much less in a planning application and things like that. So we're not going to cover everything, but it'll be hopefully a good opportunity for a bit of thinking about what's going to be coming down the line and what we've got to do about it.
Thank you. So on that note, I'm looking around. I've nobody else waving or anything, so I'm happy to move the recommendations, and Councillor Myers looks like he's seconding. So is his hands up?
Yes, Chairman, if that's okay.
Right, all those in favour, members? Looks pretty unanimous. Anybody against? Councillor, all the hands have gone down, I think, for anybody against, and abstentions. Looking round, can't see any. So thank you, members, for getting that one through. I think we're at agenda item 11, property flood resilience recovery support scheme. Councillor Liss.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just members will have seen, read the paper, just a bit of background. This was established by government or DEFRA as a department of government following the floods that we all experienced, or a lot of people experienced in February 2020. To qualify for the scheme, the district has to have 25 or more properties, and there was some doubt that we had that many. However, when we investigated it, we found that we had 29 properties that had been affected. 25 of those were residential and 4 of them were commercial. And the areas that it covered was pretty widespread all across the district: Coniston Cold, Cowlin, MC, Gargrave, Glusburn, Gildersleeds, Hellyfield, Horton and Ribblesdale, Settle and Skipton. So it's right across the district. The purpose of the scheme obviously is to assist property owners to improve flood resilience, for example, install floodgates. However, the grants are limited to £5,000 per household. The only downside to this, and it seems to go with these sort of things nowadays, that there's no additional funding to administer the scheme for the council. We've got to meet what additional funding it takes up from within our existing resources, and then returns will be submitted to DEFRA, who reimburse the council having paid out to the applicants on successful applications and schemes. So that's the only downside. But I think if we can help anybody to rectify some of the issues that they had during that awful period, it's to be welcomed. So I will move the recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Question from the chair. It says it's for 2020, so presumably will this scheme be reenacted if there's floods this winter or in 2 winters' time, or do we think it's just a one-off and
I think this is specifically for that period, and one would hope that it would be. This scheme ends actually in the 1st of July 2022. I don't know what would happen if there was some more now. One would hope the government would piggyback it, but who can tell? all I can report is that this scheme is specifically for the damage that we experienced in February.
Chair, can I just add that there was a scheme 3 or 4 years ago when we had the floods. If you remember, Boxing Day was 1 year was a particularly bad year. They did introduce a scheme following that. So there is a precedent. So if there are more flooding events, then there is the potential that there'll be a further scheme.
However, this scheme, this recommendation is specifically for this scheme, which, as I say, ends on the 1st July 2022.
Thank you. Of Councillor Myers and Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think this will be welcomed by residents who have had to suffer the awful experience. Terrible thing to happen, and really impacts on people's lives for quite some time. So I know the residents of Dargrave who were flooded will be grateful for this little but welcome assistance. And it's to be hoped, as far as Dargrave is concerned, that our friends at the Canals and Rivers Trust remember to open the sluices in times of great downpour, and then properties in Dargrave that haven't flooded in a century don't need to flood again. So I know I'm grateful for the officers at Craven for conveying a firm message to Rivers Trust. That's their job.
Councillor Holloway.
Very happy to second this because I noticed that I don't think anyone seconded it. I'm very happy to second this. Just to mention the fact that as a result of the February floods, there are people in this country who are still flooded out and having to go through this pandemic. So it's been a double whammy for them. And I think this is, although the amounts are very small, it is welcome, and I fully support it.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. I've nobody else wishing to speak on this one. I'm a show of hands, Vicky.
Can we do a roll call for this one, because we're actually approving participation in the DEFRA scheme? Well, is that okay?
Absolutely fine. So over to you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Foster.
For.
Councillor Barrett.
For.
Councillor Handley.
For.
Councillor Ireton.
For.
Councillor Liss.
For.
Councillor Madeley. Is Councillor Madeley gone?
Can't see him here at the moment. No.
Okay. Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Morell.
For.
Councillor Mulligan.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Noland.
For.
Councillor Place.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Soloway.
For.
And Councillor Wheeler.
For.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you. Thanks for that, members. Moving on to item 12, Arts Award offer at Skipton Town Hall. Over to you, Councillor Myers. Muted, Councillor Myers.
Hello?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah. Yes, well, members would have read this report. It is an opportunity for us at Craven to offer Arts Awards in conjunction with Trinity College London for our young people to get started in careers in the creative, performing and the more administrative side of the arts. I think members will see that it's a very good scheme. It gives young people a great opportunity to learn both skills and discipline. It will allow us to award bronze, silver and gold levels in due course. And the cost to Craven by the time it's fully running in 3 years, under £1,000 a year. Members, I hope you'll agree with me. It's money well spent. It's part of what we should be doing in terms of making Craven a more attractive place to young people, keeping them here, keeping them engaged, making use of our very valuable resources, Skipton Town Hall. So I do ask you to follow the recommendations, and I think we will have to take a vote on this one. So I move it, Chairman.
Councillor Metcalfe, join, and
Yeah, I just want to say that I think this is really important because one of the hardest hit areas with COVID has definitely been the cultural and arts and entertainment businesses. So I think this is really important right now, particularly.
seconding as well. Councillor Soloway.
Yes, I mean, there's been quite a lot of sort of debate about the arts and how people have been affected by this pandemic. And it's almost as if people have been saying, oh, well, these artists can retrain. Well, it's not quite as easy as that. And people are forgetting that the arts and performing arts and performance industry is not only a major contributor to the economy of the country, but also it employs so many people outside that field anyway. And it's been dreadfully affected by this pandemic. So anything we can do to support this, I support. There's people out there who are basically looking at the end of their, almost the end of their careers now in performance and in live music and lots of other parts of it. So anything we can do to support it, because it's a major contributor to the economy of this country and to the creativity of this country, what we're well known for.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Yes, I think this is absolutely spot on. And I think Section 6 says it all, you know, it matches everything that we as the district council are working towards. We're wanting to encourage young people to stay here. I fully support everything that Councillor Metcalfe and Councillor Soloway have said. It's essential. And I think we've also, with the wonderful business of the town hall, we've got the basis to build up something that really could become very special to Craven. So I'm totally in support of it. The more we can do, the better. And I really look forward to seeing it come through, blossom, etc., etc. The more we can do in this area, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you. I would have liked to have seconded it. I think somebody's beaten me to it.
Councillor Soloway, the hand's still up. Is that an error? Yeah, I think the arts is going to need some rebuilding. So let's. I think this is helpful. So on that note,
Yeah.
members.
Could I just say, Chairman, that anybody who doubts the positive effect that high art has on people's well-being only had to watch Gargrave dancing on Sunday nights during the lockdown part of the pandemic, know how very good the performing arts are for keeping people's spirits up.
Yep. Looking around, no more members. Are we hands up, Vicky?
Can we do a quick roll call? Is that okay for this one?
Start it.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
For.
Councillor Barrett.
For.
Councillor Handley.
For.
Councillor Ireton.
For.
Councillor Liss.
For.
We've still no Councillor Madeley, have we? Right, okay. Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Morell.
For.
Councillor Mulligan.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Noland,
4.
Councillor Place,
4.
Councillor Rose,
4.
Councillor Soloway,
4.
and Councillor Wheeler.
4.
That's unanimous, Chairman, to go with the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you again, and thank you, members. I believe you're leaving us now, Councillor Myers.
I'm going to go and put the hens away. Yeah.
So, but moving on from this, it says lead member Councillor Myers, but obviously he can't be the lead member because he went out and purchased a lump of lead. Now, doing a bit of roofing, I sort of like tend to put lead in valleys and things like that, but in real terms, this is actually quite a significant bit. This is the Romans wandering about and digging up in and around Craven and producing a lump of lead. So I'm maybe not the best person as a bit of a cultural Luddite for introducing this argument, but he's paid what he's paid for it, as Councillor Myers. He believes it ought to be on Joint Craven Museum. He was sort of trying to wangle ways and means of getting it bought and put into Craven Museum before it came up for auction. Couldn't manage to do it, so went out and bought it off his own bat. It is a significant piece, you know. There isn't loads and loads of these bits kicking around. The price is the price at auction, so it's got a value as it is. We look like we're going to be successful at getting the acquisition funding for it. So we're probably really looking at a £2,000 commitment from Craven to have this £22,000 or £23,000 item within the collection. I think it would be a good thing for when we're reopening the museum to have something like this sat in there. I'll go to Councillor Mulligan, who probably is more cultured than me, to talk us through the rest of this. You're muted, Patrick.
Thanks, Richard. I do think we should refrain from calling it a lump of lead. You know, I think that Simon's played a blinder here. You know, if you look at what he's done, he's acquired a significant item for the Craven Museum. It's with the government grants that I think it's contingent upon that we receive them. It's going to cost, this is something that's worth £23,000 at auction. It's going to cost us £2,000. But beyond that, it's a significant sort of cultural item. There were 2 of these found. One of them's been in private hands. One's been in the British Museum since 1772. And I'm excited about this sort of thing. I'm sorry, I'm a geek, but this item was, the inscription is from 81 AD. You know, this is a significant historical item for the area. There you go. Is that it? I'm glad to have it shown to us. I think the other thing I wanted to say in 6.1, the other thing I like, and this maybe it's to Danielle, is, you know, it's saying there, making strategic acquisitions to Craven Museum collections enables us to retain interest and attract new visitors with positive impact on donations and secondary spend. So it's positive for the economy too, to have a good museum with interesting pieces. And so I applaud Simon for seeing this opportunity. I would also say, maybe to Danielle, I think I love this idea that we're going to make more acquisitions for the museum. And I know that I wonder what we're doing in terms of legacy donations, because I'm sure there's lots of people in Craven who we would like to encourage to include the museum in their will, and we might get some significant contributions that way. I think that's how we got the Shakespeare folio in the first place. So I'm very excited about the Town Hall project, the museum. I think this is a significant acquisition. We've gotten it for next to nothing, you know, in the context, and I'm strongly supporting this, and I hope we're going to do more of it. Thank you.
And a bit of screen sharing at a policy committee meeting of a very significant acquisition, not a lump of lead. Sorry for that. I'm assuming you're moving it, Councillor Mulligan.
I am moving it. Thank you.
Councillor Metcalfe, then Councillor Soloway.
I'm just glad that I've seen it, because a lump of lead did actually paint a picture in my mind. So I really appreciate, I think, Guy putting that photo, that picture up. It actually does make a lot of sense. So that's all I wanted to say. That made a big difference to me.
Councillor Soloway.
I don't have you down as a cultural Luddite leader. You come watching the Diamond Soul Band at the Foresters every now and again. No, I did appreciate seeing the picture of this ingot, and we must remember that we've had other collections in Craven that have brought visitors into the area, and visitors that have spent money, including the Petty collection and the Shakespeare portfolio. Yes, there will be some people who'll say, well, Craven District, you know, the headline is Craven District Council spent £2,000 on a piece of lead. But I always think that if you don't have a museum in an area like this, you are denying your heritage and you're denying your history. And they always say that people who choose to ignore their history. So I support this. And I wish the museum all the success. As soon as we can open and do it in a safe way, I've always supported the town hall and the museum project, and this enhances it.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Again, very pleased to have seen a picture of what it is that we are referring to and thinking about. I fully support everything Councillor Soloway and Councillor has said with respect to this museum, our new, our revamped, wonderful new town hall, to be another added extra to what will be something very special. I do think I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I think we do owe a vote of thanks to Councillor Myers for actually spotting this and being so generous spirited to ensure that it didn't get filched and sent off to America or somewhere else. So I would like to just say thank you to him as well for saving the day, so to speak. I'm fully in support of the event anyway. Thank you.
No, Councillor Wheeler.
Yep. It's as an old classic scholar, I'm delighted to see this purchase. It is a little awkward because obviously one of our members has taken the initiative and bought it at auction. So just to satisfy me, I would ask Danielle, if this piece had come forward without Simon purchasing it, is it something we would have bid for?
Yes, definitely. It's very relevant to our collections, both in the lead mining, and it will give us our earliest example of lead mining in the area, and within our Roman collections as well. It adds context to all of the items that are found at Kirksink and Elslack Fort as well. So it's definitely something that will sit within our collections policy. So we're drafting a new policy at the moment, ready for when the museum opens. We've done a huge amount of work on the collections and cataloguing so that we can see where the gaps are and where we want to actively acquire objects in the future. So obviously we'll share that with members when that's ready to be ratified. But yes, it's definitely an object that would have been of great interest to us, even if Simon hadn't brought it to our attention.
Thank you. Would seeing it properly. Would seeing it properly.
Yeah. Thank you, members. I've had it moved. I'm not sure I had it seconded. If anybody wants to wave, Councillor Rolls was first waving. On that note, members, to all those in favour of bringing a significant artefact back to Craven and putting it in the museum, please raise their hand.
Chairman, can we do a named vote on this?
Sorry, yes.
Because it is Councillor Myers, and we are going to be having grant funding. So would that be okay?
Absolutely fine.
All right, thank you. Councillor Foster.
For.
Councillor Barrett.
For.
Councillor Handley.
For.
Councillor Ireton.
For.
Councillor Liss.
4,
Councillor Madeley's still not with us. He must have left. Councillor Metcalfe.
4.
Councillor Morell.
4.
Councillor Mulligan.
4,
Councillor Myers. No, he's not here. Councillor Noland.
Definitely 4.
Yeah. Councillor Place.
4.
Councillor Rose.
4.
Councillor Soloway.
4.
And Councillor Wheeler.
4.
That's unanimous, Chairman. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, members. So on that note, I believe we're moving to exempt items. I'm correct. I'm looking for a nod for a minute. Are members happy to move into exempt session? Looking round, yeah.